Hello. Take a seat. Everyone is full after lunch? Everyone is excited? Yay! Hi, I'm Mario. We will talk about today about open source contributions in the age of an AI. Where is this quote from? I expect every one of you to know it. Yes, Galadriel said it. The world has changed. I feel it in the water. I feel it in the earth. I smell it in the air. And basically, the same you can say about open source. Hi, I'm Mario. I am in the CNCF Technical Oversight Committee. I'm also a Kubernetes SIG contributor, co-chair, and I'm also one of the leads for the AI conformance subproject. And I work as a custom delivery architect for Kubernetes on the daytime. The other stuff is mostly nighttime and daytime. When you look at open source, we're facing a paradox because open source in the past was never more valuable than now, but it is also was never threatened that much how we are currently. So basically, I see this from an inside perspective. So I see it from the TOC, by projects that are getting in, by health checks that are being opened, by projects that are slowly dying that you all rely on and you don't know that they are dying. I see also from contributor experience how much intake we have in Kubernetes and how much churn we have in Kubernetes in maintainers. And I also see it from the AI conformance that was basically pushed through in less than half a year to come to a statement, which basically put even more pressure on open source maintainers. And there are a lot of bad things happening. Basically, everything that we have in open source is under pressure. $8.8 trillion is the worth of open source. That was 2 years ago. 2 years ago, there was an estimation by Harvard Linux Foundation with open sensor, with Census 2 and stuff like this. They basically took like, those are all of the open source projects, and this is what they compare of, and the part which was contributed in by code lines and stuff like this. And this is the value of open source. There are only 2 countries in the world where the GDP is bigger, China and the US. So these 2 countries have more GDP than the worth of open source that we have. And who of you is using open source? Who did not raise their hand? I don't believe you if you don't raise your hand, because everyone is using open source, because everything is open source. So we have currently 15.6 million developers who are using cloud native technologies. So some project of the CNCF. That means that 77% of tools that we use are backed by this. But when we look at who contributes to open source, the number gets a little bit bad. So we currently have 5,800 contributors on the main repository in Kubernetes. We have hundreds of thousands developers who are using Kubernetes. We have 227 active projects in the CNCF. We have a handful that are archived and merged and stuff like this. And when you look at the numbers who are contributing to this, it gets really, really bad, because when we look at the gap that we have 5,800 contributors. Fun fact, those 5,800 contributors are not the actual number, because when we do elections in Kubernetes for steering, everyone who has maintainer status and did 1 commit in the past 12 months is eligible to vote. And we have 600 people who are eligible to vote. So even the number that are eligible to vote are way smaller than we have. And for the first time last year, we had less people coming into Kubernetes that we kicked out, because we are cleaning up the organization every year. To keep being inside of the organization, you need to make one comment in an issue. That's the bar that you have to meet. And we kicked out more people that came in last year. So you can imagine what churn we have. The fun thing is, at KubeCon this year, where are the most developers in the world? Europe. The most open source developers by region are from Europe, by far. Now let's look at the companies in the global rank. And I took the main seed of the company for this. So we have on place 7 globally, SUSE, which is place 1 in Europe. We have on place 2 Ericsson, which is on place 15 globally. Then we have Spotify. And then you can look at the contribution numbers. And you see the problem. We have the most people in Europe, but they are not working for European companies. And we cannot talk about sovereignty in the world, in Europe, when we are not doing anything to support open source. And that's the problem. Jan Mehlen from Ericsson did basically this quote at KubeCon Amsterdam this year at the keynote stage, and basically said that everyone is building now. If everyone builds their stuff by themselves, this would fragment the whole ecosystem. And this is basically the main problem that we are facing, because if we start now and say like, hey, let's build as Europe our own stack, that's not working. Because this is the main problem that we are facing, is if we split things up. So we have more fragmentation. We have 27 sovereign stacks that nobody is adopting, or is only adopted by one company and adopted by another company. Basically, when one CVE drops that affects the core of those projects, you need to patch 27 projects instead of 1, which makes everything more problematic. And basically, that's an opposition of how open source should work. So, what happened when companies changed things? I have 2 examples. Redis. Who remembered what happened to Redis? Yay, we changed the license and it's now no longer open source. What a smart move. What happened? There was a fork. The community forked it under Walkie. Walkie was then supported by bigger providers. And Walkie is still more popular than Redis, although Redis changed again license that it becomes open source. Congratulations, you just completely rushed your brand against the wall. And the other prominent story is obviously Terraform and OpenTofu. Yay, I take a product that is working well and I change the license and make it not open source anymore. Which meant they created a change in the license, and it basically cost the companies dearly. HashiCorp, not that much because they got bought. Lucky for them. But for Redis, this was a real impact. Also, the good thing, and I see this as a good thing, is Cyber Resilience Act. Who has heard of the Cyber Resilience Act? That's better than last year. Last year was the problem when I raised this question. So who of you is creating software, or you selling software to customers in their company? If you're not aware of the Cyber Resilience Act, you have a problem in September, because the Cyber Resilience Act will basically force you that you report any vulnerability of software that you're using to the European Union. And if you don't comply with this, or if you fail to do so, you can basically be sued for either 50 million euros, which is nah, or 2.5% of your global annual revenue, which is, you take the higher penalty, not the lower penalty. The good thing is, probably the enforcement was due at 11th of September this year. There are signs that the European Union is not that fast, so you're lucky to implement this. But basically what this also means, that you are responsible for your open source inventory, which means that you need to report vulnerabilities to of your whole inventory, which means that if you can fix it upstream, because that's way cheaper for you than to maintain a fork. And that's not the only one, because we also have another law that is affecting us, which is basically NIS2. And with NIS2, which is already in force, you already have to do it. So there's no way around it that you can skip over this. So basically, this forces you to not passively consume open source. So we have also the problem that if we start code sovereignty, does not mean that we cannot trust open source projects that are maintained by US folks, because code sovereignty and deployment sovereignty are two different things. It is basically the more people who are looking at software, the more input we get, the more flaws we find, the better it can be optimized. If we only started locally, this will just hurt the whole idea of sovereignty, because sovereignty is basically the usage of this, not so much the development of this. So the focus is that we need to have this on a global scale still for development, but we need to adopt it on a local stage. And the other problem that we have is AI. Who has heard we have AI now, we can build something like this that fixes our problem by ourselves? Nice. How well did it go? Basically, it is easy to generate code that works in some kind of way. I'm also using AI, obviously. Every bigger company in the world is using AI, and it's speeding up development. The problem is, if I just use it in my company, it stays private, it stays isolated, no one reviews it. Everyone who says, I reviewed this 10,000 lines pull request, lies. It is never shared with anyone, and it never went anywhere. So basically, yes, you can generate stuff. So we don't care about Kubernetes anymore. We build our own Kubernetes because it's easy, chips fast. But this is basically the problem that we're facing, that then the common understanding is dying and everyone is doing their own stuff, and we need to fix more stuff everywhere. So basically, it is an attack by laziness. So what benefits do we have if we do stuff in the open? Shared code, shared fixes, shared input from different companies, shared tests, someone who is criticizing you, because criticizing is a good thing. You learn new points of how to approach things. And if I don't just do it in my company, it's just inside of your company, and it's potentially just only you. So you don't get any feedback whatsoever. So we are losing shared bug fixes, shared security patches, interoperability, because then you need to, hey, we built another API to communicate with an API that was an API layer that we built on top of a specification that we found by a customer. Have fun maintaining this in the long term. And tests, why should I let my AI write tests? It's just wasted tokens, right? So basically, we lose everything that makes open source projects already more resilient. 48% of AI developers are cloud native. Bold claim, was in a CNCF study from 2025. We know that everyone needs to use AI. because everyone is forcing you to use AI. I mean, when I look at our own company, it's like, hey, use Claude. Here's your Claude subscription. Go ahead and use it, because this speed up things. But the problem is still that you can use AI and be critical with it, and you can use AI and just trust it fully. And there's a lot of arguments that my AI and I have, and I brought it now to the point where my AI started swearing. So my AI tells me fuck and shut up. It took me half a year to get it there, but I'm now very proud of it that it talks now the same language as me. I also find it a little bit of scary that it's now using also the same swearing words that I use. The good thing is blog post generation is now way easier because it really sounds as awful as I sound. But yeah, basically, you can use AI. You need just to challenge it. So we basically need to extend from code comments that we did in the past, source code, bug fixes, security patches, into intelligence comments, so that we can get to a baseline where every data that we use also for AI is being used by everyone in the same room, so that we have basically not only source code, we need open weights, we need open data sets, and we need transparent training so that we can basically reuse and rebuild and give it to all of the open source developers that they use the same thing. And the best thing about this war, or the best example why we should do this, was what happened 2 weeks ago with Mythos, when the US basically banned everything. And yeah, you're outside of the US, yeah, good luck. You cannot use our model anymore. Also, do you know on which data all of the models have been trained? Me neither. So, sovereign AI doesn't mean also sovereign training, because if we have code bases, or if we use a code base that was bad that the AI was trained to, the AI is also probably going to be bad. Also, if no one is using basically a similar baseline, we are digressing in 2 different directions. And we also all keep in mind that, I don't know who saw this graph, where it's like, when you're using a paid AI service, you are less than 1% of the world's population. So basically, all of the usage of AI, we are still in our ivory tower above everyone else who is using AI. And basically, we need sovereign training methods and sovereign parts of it to build those AIs and to basically be transparent and share it across the community, and not like, I keep it in my company because my company is great, and then my company earns the money, and I will leave the company because I will be kicked out of the company and will be replaced by the AI that I have built. Because we always need to imagine that all of the AI that we have now, or all of the models, have been trained on open source code and open source development that has been out in the wild. So basically, all of you, whoever committed one thing into GitHub public, owns a bit of those AI training patterns that now are being sold for, I don't know, what is a GitHub Copilot subscription now by token? So you're paying this. So we have 2 paths for contributing to AI. We have the AI-assisted consumption, where we generate the code, keep it private, never give it back upstream, and destroy open source more. Or we use AI to contribute upstream based on open models, open reviews, open declarations, open skills, and give it access to more people. It's the same AI with 2 opposite outcomes. So What should you do now? Same every year, what I do on the stage. Contribute to open source. It helps. It's good for you. It's good for your company. And contribution can mean different things. You can do bug reports. You can do test cases. You can do code reviews. You can do issue comments. You can also found foundations. And you can basically build stuff in your company, but do it in the open so that everyone can use it. It's sharing the same intelligence that we did in the past with code, but we also now need it for intellectual property. So there are different ways that we can use. We are using AI review bots in CNCF projects, left and right. Even Kubernetes is using it. We have AI-generated docs. Translation, that's a big benefit for us, doing localized translation for documentation, because there are a lot of developer communities that don't speak English. Best to see this is all of the Latin American ones. There's like, they really search in contributions once someone translated the Kubernetes documentation into Spanish. That was the biggest search in contributors from there. We have the same in Japan with Japanese. We have even bigger in China. And we also can use AI to create tests, because no one of us likes writing tests. So the tools we have, the only question is how can we make them available to the bigger good. Also, there's another foundation that is often overlooked at, which is the OpenSSF. Who of you heard of the OpenSSF? Half of it. So OpenSSF is the Open Security Foundation. They have a ton of cool things. They have scorecards that tells you how healthy is my project, how diverse is my project, how not influenced is my project, how secure is my project. It also gives you tooling for all of the Cyber Resilience Act stuff that you have, that you need to build. It gives you SBOM tooling, it gives you attestation tooling. And all of those are OpenSSF projects, and nobody talks about them because nobody's aware of them. So please have a look at OpenSSF, because they will help you fix this Cyber Resilience Act thing that you did. And also, that's advertisement. I'm sorry. That's an open source project that Corey and I built for, we generated 10,500 SBOMs for all of the CNCF projects and the sub-projects. If you have SBOMs, it's nice. If you cannot see what they are doing, that's not so nice. So basically, BombHorde is a platform that you can run inside of your cluster. It's Apache 2 license, completely open source. And we opened the OpenSSF sandbox application on Sunday. That basically builds you a dashboard that enriches you with all of your data for dependencies that you're using based on the SBOMs that you feed it. It also generates OpenWex files and finds license issues and stuff like this. And also, beside building it public, we are working on more conformance programs, because conformance programs is the only way where we can, how to say this nice, bring vendors to the same point that a platform should be interchangeable. Which means that we created the AI conformance program to have like, hey, if you use a vendor that is certified by AI conformance, you can do most of your AI workload stuff on this platform and make it interchangeable. So this was created by the community with the community head on, because there had been vendors who were pushing back on this, but in the end, they still aligned by force because of the pressure of the community, and because they also wanted to get a flag. So we basically can create a standard. And I think that there will be more conformance programs for the different parts of the community coming. So basically, foundations are not institutions. They are all of us. They are you, they are us. And there's always the saying that, yeah, but CNCF is in the US, and CNCF is a US entity, and we cannot trust CNCF because they are a US company. A foundation seat is not limiting the sovereignty, because foundations provide governance, neutrality, infrastructure. They keep roadmaps and technical directions. And foundations are thematic, not geographic. Because if we start doing foundations on a geographic scale, then we are again doing the same mistake by separating global communities. Because I want the input from someone from Japan, I want the input from someone from South Africa, I want the input from someone from the United States. And if I start putting foundations on a local level, I am missing out on talent. So basically, we have sovereignty. What I said in the beginning is where I run it, not who is supporting and hosting the repository. And we are declining in contributions. We have less and less contributions every year. That means fewer people maintaining the commons, fewer companies are investing, and everything gets bad. Basically, 43% we heard in the beginning was coming from Europe. And the funny bit is, everyone says, yeah, CNCF is all US. No, it's not. Half of the TOC, more than half of the TOC is not American citizens, and close to half of the TOC is not even American companies. So influence in those foundations you gain by contributing and not by forking. And we saw how much Europe is contributing, and there's the problem, and not in the foundation sits in the US. So there was one project that was really, really great. So we had Crossplane. Crossplane had over 3,000 contributors across 450 organizations. It is one of the best projects in the world for contributor engagement, and it can work. There are projects basically where things like this work, but this only works if companies are invested on supporting those projects. So basically, look inside of your company, look at what projects are you using, and then invest in them. So basically, you have the choice of what you do. We can use AI to support everything or to destroy everything. There's no in between. I would basically change what Jan said to sovereign intelligence on shared training commons. That's the idea that where we want to go. So the only last question is for you, what will you do tomorrow? One of those things, because open source doesn't maintain itself. And with this, I have 30 seconds left for questions. All right, then enjoy the rest of the cool day and see you at some other conference. Bye.